Hi, and welcome to Cognition and Memory, and this is the second video lecture. And today we're going to discuss the chapter 2, and we're again talking about continuing to define cognition and memory and the different views and ways of studying cognition and memory. Initially, let me give you some themes, uh, which are areas of interest and research um, in the field of cognition. The first of which is attention. The idea that we can focus our attention on specific objects or conversations and extract meaningful information. However, we're also uh, getting information on a more subliminal level, and certain things can cause us to switch the focus of our attention rather rapidly. For example, driving in a car along the freeway, and all of a sudden, without deliberately focusing your attention on the lane next to you, more focusing your attention on what's in front of you, in your peripheral vision, a car seems to be approaching you, you have a startle or orienting response, and you take evasive action. All of a sudden, you're no longer focusing on what's in front of you exclusively. Your attention is now directed to the event or object or conversation or whatever that captured your attention by its sudden appearance, its novelty. Okay? We don't really understand all of the features of attention. Um, we don't know exactly. I mean, it sounds like there's this little executive controller in our brain that says, well, now you're going to pay attention to this, then we're going to switch and pay attention to that. And there's some real interesting research in this area. The next theme is automatic versus controlled processing. Now, let me give you an example of this, and I'm going to use a term from social cognition, which we all should be familiar with, stereotyping. Stereotyping is an automatic process, shorthand, if you will. I construct through either listening to other people's conversation, like parents, or through my own personal experience, a set of characteristics that go along with a particular group, and I find one or two particularly salient characteristics that allow me to quickly identify you or you or you as a member of that group. Once I've identified you as a member of that group, I no longer have to focus all of my attention on you to gather characteristics. I've got a packet stored. Okay, example. Let's say that we have stereotypes about guys in cars, okay, gearheads. And I'm walking down the street or walking around downtown, and I see a certain kind of car, Mustang, Mach 500 Mustang, or Camaro Super Sport, or whatever, that new Malibu, which are actually kind of nice looking cars. Um, and I automatically, without consciously processing any other information, have a complete set of information, a stereotype, if you will, of the person who owns that car. I have immediate conclusions about what they eat and where they work and how they focus their attention and their political beliefs and blah, 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 blah. Uh, Another example would be if you're a very liberal Democrat and you meet someone who sounds like a Republican, you might immediately jump to the conclusion, your stereotype of a Republican, as being a Bible-toting, gun-carrying, my way or the highway sort of authoritarian personality. And the problem with automatic is we don't have a lot of control over it. Once a stereotype or set of shorthands, if you will, little packets of information are in place, they occur, i.e. automatically. Now, the other side is controlled processing, automatic versus controlled processing, where all of my gathering of information is a deliberate process. In other words, I'm walking down the street at Fiesta, and I see a bunch of young men standing on a street corner, and they are all wearing similar clothing and similar bandanas, and they're in a very tight group. The automatic processing may end up with the stereotype, oh, they're a gang, I've got to cross the street or get out of the way, so the stereotype is affecting my behavior. The controlled processing may be, oh, they're all wearing the same colors, they look the same, what other information can I gather before that automatic stereotype pops into my mind? I may look more closely, look for detail that either confirms or disconfirms the stereotype, but I'm controlling the information that I'm taking in. All right. The third theme or area of interest is data-driven versus conceptually driven. Now, this is about our thinking. Is our thinking driven by data, or is it driven by concepts? Data-driven would be that all the information I need to operate in my environment comes directly from information, sensory data, my accumulation of sensory information from my environment, and it doesn't require any other cognitive effort. This relates really strongly, if you happen to be in the learning class, with perceptual learning. J.J. Gibson and his wife and a couple other people, very interesting stuff about data-driven versus concept. Now, the concept side of it is that I take in information from my environment, sensory data, okay, but I process it. And I start looking for similarities with information that I already have stored in memory. I template match. I look at prototypes. We'll talk about those definitions later. But what I'm doing is looking for things that allow me to bring up a mental representation or a mental concept of similarity. If I see a bird sitting on the ground, I don't have to see it fly to know that it's capable of flying. The concept is birds fly. Okay? From a data-driven perspective, I see the bird sitting on the ground, and that's all I know. At that point in time, the bird is simply sitting on the ground. Conceptually, a conceptually driven processing allows me to bring up all of the other information that I know about birds. Okay. The next theme is representation. This is a very interesting idea, and it is this. How do I represent sensory data or the accumulated information from my environment in my memory? Let's go back to the example of the bird for a minute. Do I have a representation for each species of bird that I'm familiar with? In other words, I've got a little category for robins, a little category for sparrows, and a little category for buzzards, and blah, blah, blah. Or do I have some more general categories where I've got a representation of wing, and I can apply that to each bird I see, rather than having to identify all of the different configurations of a wing, or a robin's wing is slightly different than a sparrow's wing. Do I have to represent each one of those different wings in memory, or can I store a representation of a universal wing? All things that fly have this characteristic. Okay. The next area of interest is memory. And we can talk about memory in general terms as being implicit or explicit, where those terms may be translated into, am I aware of what's going on or am I unaware of what's going on? Can information that has no conscious event, that I'm not conscious of it, but that I've got it stored, affect my behavior? Let me see if I can simplify that a little bit. We all go shopping. We all go to the store, or different stores. How many of us end up buying objects in the store that we did not have on our either physical or mental list? If I go into a store like Lowe's, for example, and I may have one item on my list, and when I come out of there, I have done some impulse shopping, and I now have 2 carts full of stuff that I didn't want or didn't need. What's driving that behavior of picking up that other object? Okay. So, implicit versus explicit memory. Am I aware or unaware of information that's guiding my behavior? Okay. The next one is metacognition. Metacognition is very conceptual. Are we aware of our own thinking? You ever sit down after having done something and go back through the sequence of events, the thinking events, that led up to a particular behavior? Why did I do that? Well, that's metacognition looking backward. Are you capable of thinking about your thinking as you are producing a behavior or an action presently? Huh? And the final theme that we're interested in is the brain itself, because we cannot talk about cognition and memory without talking about where those phenomenological events take place, and they take place in the brain. So today, the way we're taking a look at the brain's relationship or interaction with or source, if you will, of cognition, thinking, memory, the interaction between cognition and memory, and the interaction between cognition, learning, and memory. We take a look at fields of academic interest like neuropsychology, cognitive neuroscience, and the field of neuroscience, which we will get back to later on in this discussion. Okay, thanks.